to this computer. Nice. Okay, cool. Um, so a couple new faces here today. Thanks for coming, guys. We are doing some really cool stuff. So we're gonna pick up where we left off yesterday. We're gonna start with a meditation today, though, because your boy just talks the whole time. So we're gonna get the meditation done first. That way we can say that we did it. Um, but I wanted to just start by something that we do in the group chat is every Friday for the last couple weeks, we've been celebrating something that's positive and something that's good. Uh, there's so much crazy stuff in the news. There's so much insanity that I like to find tiny acts of rebellion. I think that it's cool to do like big acts of rebellion, but I think that little tiny acts are also really cool because you can do them all day long, especially in secret. And so I think that having gratitude is just one of the coolest acts of rebellion that you could ever do. Because when you're content, which is, built on the foundation of gratitude, it's really difficult for someone to sway you out of your vibe. It's really difficult for someone to stir you into a negative emotion that you don't support when you're just dripping gratitude into your life all the time. So I was just feeling especially grateful to get together with you guys and talk about things like compassion. It's Saturday morning. It's early, depending on where you are in the world. And there was a time in my life where at this time in the morning on a Saturday morning, I'd be trying to figure out how to eat something oily and get some orange juice and drink enough coffee to undo an entire night of drinking. So, so anyway, listen, those were great times too. But also I think that it's kind of cool to, start a weekend just cultivating compassion. We spend a lot of time just scrolling. I think it's cool to invest into our hearts. So I just want to say thank you for being here. I really appreciate it. Feels special. All right. I'm gonna share my screen. Okay. Great. So we're doing a series called Dancing with Lions. When we become so fearless in our groundedness and living beautifully, we become like a lion and our truth roars. And what happens is, as we roar our truth, our main dances. So that's why they call Dharma, when you're rooted in the Dharma, they call it the lion's dance. Because as the apex predator, there is no thing that could scare you out of being the way that you are. So when you're so logically rooted in compassion and you've done the honest work of disciplining yourself to live that way, you get to dance like a lion. And so we're building through this really, really, really beautiful text. Um, Real quick announcements. Next Fast for Hunger. You guys may know I've been doing this for a long time. Please come hang out. July 24th, we're going to be doing skipping 1 to 3 meals, and then the money that we saved by not eating, we're going to donate that to our hungry neighbors. Um, we have all kinds of reasons to be grumpy. Hungry is one of the main reasons someone will be grumpy and mean to somebody else. And so it's really, really interesting to put yourself intentionally in a set of conditions where you're more likely to be grumpy. But keep the intention of not being grumpy. Because if we can do it with something as basic and as animal as hunger, then we can do that in any kind of analog or analogy of hunger. Like, I want recognition, or I want more money, or I'm hungry for X, Y, or Z. So when we find ourselves being in that flow, we can say, I train myself once a week with spiritual warriors to fast for hunger, where I'm compassionate even in the wake of adverse conditions. You will think that sentence verbatim, no doubt. And then you'll choose to be kind. Yay. So we do a compassion meditation from 12 to 12:30. So instead of eating food, we are sustaining ourselves on compassion. So please join July 24th. And then, dun, 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 I'm announcing a retreat. Yay! Alexa and I have been working hard to figure out what to do with spiritual warriors. It's gonna be really exciting. And we decided it'd be really cool to get, 10 to 15 people together in the mountains of Pennsylvania. And it's gonna be a retreat on self-sovereignty, meaning how can you feel like you are totally whole in who you are, independent of anything external. Like embody the sovereignty of you, and then you will be ungovernable. Okay, great. Royal Yoga, Raja Yoga, be the sovereign you. Cool. So, more to come on that soon, but those are little upcoming events. All right, we're going to catch the flow of what we've been doing in these classes, and then we're going to go into a meditation. So, feel free to start to transition yourself. If you're not in a position to meditate, it's probably going to be a 20-minute meditation. I'm going to try really hard not to go more than 20 minutes. I lose track of time when I meditate because I get really into it, but I'm going to try hard because I told you I would work on it, and here I am. So here's the flow of the text so far. We're working through a text written in around 700 AD by a great Indian sage by the name of Kamala Shila. Kamala means like lotus, and Shila means ethics. So he's like the flower of ethics, which I think is really beautiful. Um, and he helped to reestablish what it means to meditate at all. And so I read the text and I fell in love with it because it was so much more than a meditation text. But of course, it was a meditation text. It just wasn't what I was expecting. So I'm very passionate to share it. So here's the flow so far. Omniscience, the ability to know all things, regardless of time and space. That helps us to help all beings because if we don't know how to help, well, then how do you help? Omniscience is not uncaused. Omniscience has a cause because it is a mental state, and all mental states are produced, and we can see that because they change. So, what drives the change of a conscious state? That's the cause, and the result is the conscious state. So, omniscience is nothing more than a conscious state. Therefore, it has a cause. And that means that omniscience can be developed. It is possible to develop our consciousness. How consciousness works is what we got into next, which is a subject perceiving an object as dual reality. But in the essence of that dual reality, we have a non-dual reality, which is emptiness, the thing before the thing. So when our consciousness runs on valid supports, which is understanding that things come from us, that things are not inherent, that there's no such thing as objective reality, everything is subjective. When we have that mindset, that's a valid perception of reality. And when we're misunderstanding reality, that's an invalid support of consciousness. What that means is that if we were to develop our consciousness, we should develop it on valid supports because a valid support is connected to that thing which is limitless. Whereas invalid supports are limited. So try to develop your mind on math which is wrong. You will find you are quite limited in your capacity to be functional. Math that is correct, now we can do something, right? So we can take that same analogy, but to how the nature of reality functions. So we can train our mind to perceive things accurately as opposed to inaccurately. And the definition of that is a way which is consistent with how things actually are. That's an accurate perception. If an inaccurate perception is to think that a movie is reality, it is not actually that way, it just seems to be that way. So when we train our minds to perceive things accurately, we can live meaningfully because we're not living foolishly. We're living with wisdom. So what does it mean to live meaningfully? It means to be moved by compassion and practice the six perfections, which is giving and the like. To develop compassion, we start with its root, which is equanimity. All right? Where do you think we're going next? What's next in this flow? One thing you'll always find in spiritual warrior is when we're working through texts, always try to guess what comes next. You can chat it in or unmute. We're going to start with the root, equanimity. If you were writing this book, what would you write next? Well, what the heck's equanimity? You say this word, but what does it mean? If you're telling me to start there, define it. So now we're going to go into the definition of equanimity. And equanimity, in a single sentence or in a few words, is the epitome of equality. Ooh, cool. So let's check that out. So that's where we're going today. That's where we've been, and this is where we're going. And now, let's be. So I am recording a series of meditations because the text that we're working through primarily is called the stages of meditation or the steps of meditation. And it gives us literal meditations, which the promises will help us to unlock the full potential of our being, to become omniscient. And it's very, very, very prescriptive. Do this, then this, then this, then this. So, we're going to work through them one by one. As they come up in the text, we're going to be working through them, and I'll be recording them as guided meditations, which you can find on the platform. So, with no further ado, let's meditate. We're going to meditate on, they, in the text, they don't name the meditations. It just says do this. Um, so I'm giving them names. Yay. So this one is called Accurate Loving Kindness. What we're going to do is we're going to do our preliminaries briefly, and then we're going to develop loving kindness towards suffering beings, and then identify the nature of suffering, and then we'll complete the preliminaries. Okay? And Bob's going to get a timer and time himself. Okay, so start to get comfy. Do yourself a little favor and tidy up your area just a little bit. Even a single action of tidying up your area. Like I have these two pens, they're just chilling. So I just put them where they need to go. Okay? Step one of the preliminaries, tidy your area. Pretend like you're doing something sacred because you are. Okay? Next, the preliminaries. Make an offering. If you don't have a physical offering like a flower or a cookie or something like that, make an offering in your heart. Okay? And as you're doing that, sit down and come into stillness. And we do the eight-pointed postures of Vairochana. Legs are positioned in a way that promotes good circulation. The back, not leaning forward, not leaning back. The spine is erect. It's straight, it's tall. Shoulders not leaning side to side. You're balanced. The head and chin are level with the ground as much as you can, not putting any strain on the neck. The tongue is behind the front two teeth. The teeth are barely touching or not touching at all. Eyes are looking down, with eyes closed or slightly open. And the breath is unstrained, freely moving. Now we'll take 5 breaths, counting, starting with the exhale. And just feel the sensation of breath in the nostrils or in the body somewhere. And just arrive in the present moment. Leave behind whatever's in the past. Don't worry about the future. Just park yourself in the present. Relax. Good. Now let's go to take refuge, which means I'm cutting off the cycles of bad habits that I have. There's so much suffering in the world that I refuse to participate in the cycles of suffering. And I understand that things are empty, which means that I have the chance to transform any moment into a beautiful thing by living intentionally. Generate bodhicitta. And I'm doing this so that I can help people. May I become the best version of me for the sake of everyone. May I make myself the most precious gift just so that I can give it. And now bring a teacher to mind in front of you. Maybe it's your wife, maybe it's your partner, maybe it's your pet, maybe it's your Dharma teacher, maybe it's your mom. Anybody who's a teacher, bring them to mind. Recognizing that anything good that you see in them came from causes that you planted. And now prostrate. Imagine yourself just basking in admiration of the beautiful qualities of this person. Offer them your practice as a token of appreciation, saying, I reciprocate your beauty by living beautifully, and that's my practice. And see their face be pleased that you're doing your best to live a life of love. It's all a teacher wants anyway. Confession. Offer them something that you did in the last 24 hours that objectively is a cause of suffering. Commit not to do that today. And now rejoice in something beautiful that you did, something that objectively is a cause of liberation, of happiness, of the relief of suffering. And through this act, may suffering be reduced and may liberation be amplified. And now, urge your teacher to keep teaching you. Ask for teachings. Motivated by the yearning to become the best version of you for the sake of all beings. And now we'll begin the meditation. Drop the image of your teacher and perceive a suffering being, somebody in your world that you see as a suffering being. Out of your love for them, let your heart break at their suffering. And out of that broken heart, watch the flower of compassion bloom. Go into the deepest depths of empathy that you are capable of. And just feel this intense wish for them to no longer suffer. I wish I could take it all away. I wish you could experience life without suffering. Now, riding that motivation, resolve to do what you can to help them. I'm gonna live my life in a way that helps you, and not just you, but all the yous. And in order to do this, I realize that I must be wise. And so now we move into the second part of the meditation, which is identifying the nature of suffering. Now that we have analyzed suffering itself and cultivated the wish to stop suffering, what is the nature of this being that I'm perceiving? Is there suffering unchangeable, or is there suffering changeable? There was a moment when they weren't suffering like this, and then there was a moment when the suffering began. Anything which starts must end. That is the nature of things. And so I know that this suffering has the potential to stop. That's true. So, where does the suffering come from? If I know that it can change, what can I do to help? At one level, I recognize, because of the emptiness of suffering, that this being is suffering because of their own seeds. And on another level, I am forced to see them suffer because of my seeds. What a relief! Because you can feed a hungry person, but they'll get hungry again. But if I plant the seeds of generosity, then I will see a world that knows no hunger. So, by understanding that this person's suffering comes from my past actions, thoughts, and speech, that means I can do something about this. I can't change you at the level of you, but I can help you at the level of me. So, what causes are opening as the result of seeing you suffer? And we'll take time in silence right now for you to do that analysis. Like creates like. Watermelon seeds make watermelons. Identify the causes that are resulting in the perception of suffering. And now resolve to stop planting those seeds over a period of time that you can fully commit to. Even if it's only 2 minutes, you must fulfill the commitment. And now make a resolution to do the opposite. So if the cause was harming life, then the opposite would be to protect life. What is the antidote? And make that resolution in the same way. And we see in our imagination that even this resolution to stop causing suffering and start causing liberation, even in the resolution, imagine seeing that person already becoming relieved of their suffering. And think, I love you. I'd do anything for your happiness. And now we'll begin to close out the meditation with supplication, meaning asking our teachers to stay until there's no more suffering in this world. May I still have teachers in my life to help me develop. And you bring your teacher back to mind and you request the blessing. You offer your teacher a perfect world, one which has resulted from the causes that you meditated on today. And you say, look, I tried to do what you taught me. And imagine you receive the blessing. And literally, what a blessing is a diminishment of the negative and an amplification of the positive. And now, as we exit meditation, we bring with us our resolutions and our insight. And when you're ready, you can take a stretch and open your eyes. How's your meditation? 23 minutes. I almost did 20. No obligation, but would anybody like to share?
Sure. If just to throw it out there.
Yeah, thank
Um,
you.
so yeah, that was awesome, Bob. Thanks.
Yeah.
And I've been doing this meditation pretty much daily since last week when we talked about it. It's really fun to like hear your guided version of it versus kind
Mm,
of like how I had approached it. Um, and through the week and then today, I was focusing on my wife, which she suffers a lot with mental health issues. And I was asking for insight from the very beginning and
mm,
insight into just like, well, it was broad at first because I was like, what am I going to find out of this? What am I going to get out of this? I want to help her suffer less. The insight I got was was just crashing into all of the weird attachments that I've developed over the next 2 days. And everything we did that would cause conflict and strife and pain and suffering just happened. Like stuff that happens just bloomed. It was like brutal insight. Um, but it's been really interesting to work through that for the last couple of days and see like the depths of where I could go. Because it is challenging sometimes when you see someone who hurts so much to empathize with them sometimes. Like I've created
Mm,
coping mechanisms to not empathize because it's
mm,
so painful sometimes to
yeah.
be around people suffering. And that's like that breaks my heart to think that I do that, right? And to know that I do that and to feel that I do that. So it's really interesting to see how these insights actually play out in who we are in the real world. If that makes sense.
Wow, thank you so much for sharing, Paul. That sounds like a very fruitful practice, by the way.
Hmm.
My teacher always told me, he said, when you ask for your teachers to stay and for your teachers to keep teaching you, like, just be aware that it will happen, which is what you just said. Like,
Yeah, it happened.
it's not by them sprinkling flower petals on your face and dancing around. It's like, oh, great, you're ready to see it? Here it is. And you're like, wait. No, that's powerful, man. Thanks for sharing. Oh man, I had a gnarly uh flowering 2 days ago, and I was just like, where the hell did that come from? And I haven't had a chance to like sit down and really think about it. So I really, really valued that today because I'm just like, where that, and then you're just like, oh, duh, you're totally that way, you fool. So it's like, oh yeah, I should work on that. Yeah, I should totally work on that. Uh, so that was a little bit of my experience. Cool. Anybody else want to share? Three, two, one. Let's get into it. All right. So, we're gonna be coming back and back and back and back and back for probably like a month or two onto this slide. We'll see. We covered this last week. The two hands of developing compassion. This is what we meditated on today. First, developing loving kindness towards suffering beings. So, this is the first part of the meditation. Um, the thing about a broken heart is that it's an open heart. And sometimes your heart has to break for it to open, especially when we make it such a way of life to harden our heart as a coping mechanism, like Paul was sharing. Gosh, that is just a 100% human experience. Like, life is too intense, so therefore I shall become numb, and that is how I will survive. But the truth is that that's not what we actually want. Like, that's not actually what we want. Is it functional? It's extremely functional. In a short term and short sighted kind of way, that's why we do it. Like, all of our coping mechanisms, they have a purpose. You can't throw away a coping mechanism saying that it's useless because it's literally there because it's useful. But the whole purpose of becoming a spiritual warrior is to identify your coping mechanisms and then be intentional in selecting them. Right? You know, you have your like biological family and then you have your selected family or your chosen family. You know, like I can't choose my family that I was born into. But I get to choose my family that's my chosen family. And so we can kind of do that with our coping mechanisms. What are your family of of coping mechanisms? Um, and then and then you do have a chance to choose them. And then what you'll find is that the ones that you didn't get to choose, you learn how to transform them into a highway to liberation, which is really, really, really difficult. But it's, you know, kind of end game spiritual warrior. So, develop loving kindness towards suffering beings first by allowing ourselves to feel, period. Right? And then allowing ourselves to cry if we need to cry, or, you know, feel remorse if we need to feel remorse, or because that is literally your jet fuel. That is literally your horsepower. Your compassion is the alchemical substance which catalyzes taking action into something meaningful instead of skittering on the surface of it and just trying to get by. So we hijack that and we try to direct it on infinite beings right here. For me, it's this like world crushing experience of like that one person that I love is just one person. Like there are so many people who suffer exactly the same way in the world, including me. And just to let yourself feel the enormity of that is pretty intense. And then to not be hopeless in that, right? To become hopeful in that is that we, number two, must identify the nature of suffering, which is this whole second part. The truth of the being I see is that they are empty. And so that means that their condition is changeable. The truth of this being is that their suffering comes from their own seeds, but also even deeper than that, it comes from my seeds. It's not out of control. It's actually precisely within your control. The question is, what are you going to do with that? And that's where we have to beg for wisdom to live wonderfully, to live in the way that we actually believe to be true. So, out of that strong wish, uh, you know, we seek to liberate people from suffering and all of its causes. And so we have to ask ourselves, what is the cause of suffering? Okay, so we're going to be working through all of these components over the next months or weeks. So, that was where we go. That's where we were last week. And then now we're getting into this week, which is how do we develop that loving kindness? You know, it says develop loving kindness. We're not even getting towards suffering beings yet. We're not even getting to the nature of suffering. First, how to develop loving kindness. The text is extremely clear. Meditate on equanimity. Equanimity has become, in my opinion, one of the most important words in my entire life. Period. Punto. Hecho. You know, done. It's so like this is the starting point, which means that if you just invest in the starting point, then the cascade of transformation is obligated to go. So I had a lot of fun. And if you saw this in the group chat, I posted this a little bit earlier this week. I went through these different, like over the millennia and the centuries of text describing equanimity. And I saw something so cool that I was so excited to talk about today, and which I will try not to talk too much about today. Equanimity. We're going to go through at least you know the lineage of texts that I grew up in and still I'm nourished by. We're going to go through this. Uh, Impartial toward all beings, compassionate and wise, the mind remains unshaken by contact with worldly conditions. Yo, come on, guys. Fuck. That's so badass. So that's cool. That's equanimity, right? To remain unshaken. So like when we are wanting to love others, and we want to be compassionate and wise. And then, oh, we're hungry. You know? Oh, I'm sorry. I can't be patient with you today. I'm just like a little bit hungry. You know what I mean? Like, come on now. Like, that's not equanimity. Equanimity is I am unshakable in my conviction to be a beautiful person. Come on. Like, you can't touch this. Dun, 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 dun. Can't touch this. You know? Uh, And so that's like about like this like attitude equanimity, and then but the key word here is impartial. And we're gonna get into that because that's a little difficult if Bob would just hurry up. So next one is just as a solid rock is not shaken by the wind, so too the wise are not moved by praise or blame. I thought this one was really, really, really cool. Right? So in our Bodhisattva vows, which is vowed morality, which is to say, not only do I think this is a good idea, but I've literally vowed to make it a way of life, and I'm going to work really hard to upkeep that vow. One of the most critical vows is to not be moved by praise or blame, right? How much are we motivated by recognition, by someone praising us? How quick are we to hurt others, to seek praise? Uh, there's a great story about this that I want to tell right now, and it won't take long. Because this is the word that I use to remember this all the time, which is give away the momos. So if anybody knows a momo, it's like a little dumpling, and they are a pain in the ass to make. You gotta chop up the insides like so small. You know, you gotta make the it's like a wonton if you know Chinese food. You gotta make the wrapper. You gotta like very carefully fill it. It's like a ravioli, you know, but Tibetan or like a pierogi. And then you gotta steam it. So like it takes all day to make a momo. And then, so my teacher was talking about how he spent all day making these momos. And then he was about to take them up to his teacher who lived upstairs because he lived with his teacher for 30 years. And somebody else came and he had this plate of momos. And he's like, hey, George, or whatever. I don't know who it was. Like, hey, George, come over here. You know, take these momos to the teacher, right? Give away the momos. Will we spend all day to do something special for somebody and then give it away? Like give away that moment to somebody else because we think it'd be really nice for them. That's cool, right? I want my teacher to know that I made the momos so that my teacher likes me. You know what I mean? Like, so you think about this at work, think about this in your family, think about this in your relationship, think about this in anything. It's so beautiful to give away praise, to work hard to share praise. Such a cool way to be. Okay. So that's equanimity. You know, is this for me or is this for you? Who cares? It's for us. That's equanimity. That's equality. Like it's equally important to me that you get the benefit of this as I get the benefit of this because I see that we are interdependent beings. That my perception of the world is dependent on all things. I'm not an island. Okay, so this is Theravada. So Theravada is like very much like super old foundational Buddhism. Now we're getting into Mahayana, which is like kind of like I don't know, another way to approach. And you know, I teach Mahayana Buddhism as my primary lineage in this platform. I should look on all beings with the same eye. Just as I protect myself, so should I protect others. Those who understand this are said to have equanimity. This is the Bodhisattvacharya Avatara, which, as you know, big fan of Master Shantideva, who is contemporary with the author of the text that we are doing as our root text, which is the Bhavanakrama Kamalashila. So I love this. I should look on all beings with the same eye, which means like it's the same eye that I look at you as you with. And then what's also really interesting is when we think about being hit in the eye, like think about someone going to poke you in the eye, you would have a very natural reaction to protect your eye, protect others with that same like subconscious, like, oh shit, you know, Like, can we get to the point where we are protecting others in the same way that we protect our own eye? That is freaking cool, guys. Burn that into your hearts. Like, I am so in on that. Like, that's really cool. The mother who lifts the car off of her child, like, it's just like, yeah, it's just so beautiful. Okay, cool. Moving on. So this is the Mahayana Sutra Lankara, sorry. When the mind abides in equanimity, it ceases to. So now we're getting into like Majjhimika, middle way, and we're starting to actually get into Dzogchen or Vajrayana. When the mind abides in equanimity, it ceases to fabricate distinction between self and other. Whoa. Remember when we were talking about the difference between the thumb and the forefinger is a fabrication of distinction created in your mind? It's not something that's inherently findable. Like, where does one finger literally end and the other literally begin? It's impossible to say. And so your mind just creates a convenience of language by saying this finger, that finger. But if we were to actually say, like, where does literally, depends who's looking, depends was this last week when I still had that thing, like, it's kind of like created. And we can find that this distinction between self and other is an equal fabrication. And so the mind, which is abiding in equanimity, is able to give up that distinction as an ultimate truth. Like, obviously, it can still see you and me. Like, it's not like I no longer like see you as an individual, but it no longer believes that that is ultimately true. It recognizes the illusion for what it is. Okay? This is the ground of great compassion and wisdom. And you've heard that in this course before. Um, Compassion is the root, the beginning, the middle, and the end of the path of Buddhism. And equanimity is the foundation of compassion. Okay, which is why we're here today. When you view your friends and enemies as illusions, this is Jade Rinpoche. Really beautiful. When you view friends and enemies as illusions, like reflections in a mirror or dreams, the mind becomes free from bias. This unbiased mind is equanimity, and it is the ground upon which compassion for all beings can be trained without contradiction. Okay, so I just wanted to go deep because there's thousands, thousands of incredible verses on equanimity because everybody knows it's the very basis of everything beautiful is to talk about that. So I just wanted to go deep into our sources. Okay, and now I'll say it with cartoons. All right. Um, by the way, this is pretty cool. This is when I asked Gemini to make an androgynous icon of a person. How equanimous of me. Okay, so anti-equanimity of the undisciplined mind. I don't like you. So there's three, when the mind perceives beings, it very undisciplined, in an undisciplined way, categorizes people into three categories. The first is the people that I don't like, the people that I like, and then all those who are neutral. So we're going to get into how believing that this is true, that that person is worthy of me not liking them, or that person is worthy, not even worthy, but like it is in them that I don't like them. We're going to start to see how these ideas of I like you, I don't like you, and being neutral are creating suffering in the world. And then we're going to work to obliterate preference, because preference is a poison. Um, get rid of it. And by the way, this doesn't mean the preference of vanilla ice cream over chocolate. Obviously, vanilla is better. Okay. That's not the kind of preference that I'm talking about. It's not the preference of I prefer not to suffer as opposed to suffer. Like that is preference that is very, very, that's fine. It's it's the preference which is poisonous is the one which drives beliefs and actions which create suffering. Okay, so very basically, when I prefer me over you, that is the example of preference which is poisonous. Or I prefer my happiness over your happiness, so much so that I would sacrifice your happiness for my happiness. That's the kind of preference which is poisonous. So, how does that drive things in the example of people that I don't like? When you say, I don't like you, and your actions corroborate with that belief, we have a couple ideas. We think that they harmed us. This is a trip. This is a very inaccurate perception. This is a very inaccurate belief. Did they harm us? Yeah, we can say so nominally. We can say so apparently this person harmed us. But if we look at where harm comes from, then we have to understand where the harm, well, came from. Okay? And because they harmed us, they do not deserve my love. That's a really big concept. So, like, we can see this in the very broken penal system of the United States. I don't know other justice systems as well as I know the United States, but oh, you did a bad thing. You do not deserve rehabilitation. You deserve to stay in isolation, separated from society. When literally everybody knows that if you want to heal someone who hurts other people, you love them. You integrate them into functionality. You don't isolate them in dysfunctionality. That is only going to put them in, you're gonna keep them stuck. One of my favorite stories of I was listening to this keynote of somebody who specializes in juvenile detention, like, teenagers who are freaking locked away in cells. He's like, really? We really think that's going to heal society? And his favorite story is that there's this guy who ruined another guy's lawn. It's like a big deal. And they said, what do you as the one who was hurt, what would you like? And the guy was in a wheelchair. And he goes, I want him to take me grocery shopping once a week. And so years later, this gentleman is still taking this guy in a wheelchair grocery shopping. And they're like, dude, you're like, you did all your service. Like, you're free. You're out. Why are you doing this? And he goes, oh, because I love him. Like, talk about transformation. You harmed me, therefore I should love you even more. And look how that transforms relationships. So to think that you harmed me and that you don't deserve my love because you harmed me, that is poison. And it also is doubling down on this belief that you are unchanging, right? If someone was actually rotten, right? Actually, inherently, unchangeably rotten, this might actually make sense. Like if you have a rotten apple, you don't mix them in with all the good apples. But that's not actually the nature of humans. That's not the nature of beings, is that a rotten apple can become unrotten because the nature of them is that they change. And so when you say that I should hurt somebody or I should keep them away from my life or I should, do all these things that aren't buoyant and creative and beautiful and regenerative, we're saying that people are unchanging. That's what we're believing in and that's where we're acting on, whether we're aware of it or not. Which just simply, upon analysis, like we did this morning, is just simply not true. Okay, I'm gonna read something from the Bodhisattvacharya Avatara, which is, again, one day maybe I'll teach this text. I love it so much. That would be a great honor. If someone strikes me with a stick, it is their stick that harms me, not their mind. So Shantideva is like, dude, the stick is the thing that hits you. It's not the person. Get mad at the stick. If you really wanted to get mad at something, that's what hurt you. The person didn't even touch you. It was the stick that hurt you. Since the mind is deluded by affliction, toward what should I be angry? Just as the stick does not intend to hurt me, right? The stick doesn't want to hurt me, but literally the stick was the thing that hurt me. Literally. If we want to be very literal. But the stick is moved by a hand. So too afflictions move the one who harms. So if we actually want to be mad at the person who hurt us, we should be mad at their anger. We should be mad at their suffering. It's not the person who hurt us, it was their misunderstanding of how to relate to their negative emotions. That's what hurt us. And so if we wanted to go and be mad at somebody, be mad at anger itself. Be mad at selfishness itself. Because if you took that person and you removed all of their anger, they wouldn't have hurt you. True? Yes or yes? I think so. Right? So don't be mad at them. Be mad at their afflictions. Kind of interesting. So then we look at people that we like. Um, the poison of preference for people that we like. Oh, this person is related to me. So because they benefit me, or because I relate to them in some kind of strange way, like, oh, we share DNA. Like, admittedly, that's kind of strange, right? Like, I just decide to love you more than someone else just because we have like common base pairs of amino acids. Like, that's kind of a strange basis to love somebody. Um, but we do it all the time. Like, given the choice between two people, I prefer the person who's related to me as opposed to not. And we just kind of take that for granted that, yeah, that makes sense. Oh, because like they benefit me somehow, or I see myself in them or something like that. So we prefer them. But then when you see this scale up with the lever of power, it's really obviously gnarly. We have nepotism. We have the opposite of meritocracy. We have people in positions of power simply because they're related to people, or they get positions of power simply because it would benefit the power giver to give them power, not because they're a great leader or something. So obviously, we see that this kind of preference of I like you being something that is not good, generally speaking. And that, we don't have to just go to like businesses or power structures like government to see that. Like we can see that in our daily life. And what's gnarly is that the people that we prefer can very quickly become the people that we don't prefer. And so we see that the valid basis of that gets a little twisty. Like I love someone very, very deeply, and I very much ignore the people who are obviously drug addicts on the street. Like I ignore that. Like I just go on with my life. And then the person that I love became one of those people that's on the street. And it really flipped my script. And I was like, whoa. Like now that it's someone that like shares my DNA, I totally feel different about this person. And I realized that that's just really broken because that somebody is somebody to somebody, right? That somebody is a loved one to somebody. And just because it's not my somebody doesn't mean that I should care about them less. It's just a little more distant. So it's easier to ignore. But that's not actually how I want to be. Like, I don't actually believe that that's a truly enlightened way to be in this world. And a lot of times, what we think about when we think about like kindness to the people that we love is actually a misunderstanding or a really strange expression of attachment and grasping. Like, I prefer you because I'm attached to you, which that's not healthy. Or I prefer you because I grasp to our relationship. Like, our relationship has to be good because we're connected, very obviously. And so I need to like make sure that you get more than the other guy. Right. And so we see that Uh, and if you've ever been on it's interesting. We think about discrimination and about prejudice, and we think about discrimination as being like this thing against someone, but there's something called positive discrimination, which is where you're for somebody, which is called, in one expression, white supremacy. That is super ugly. Okay? That's 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 uh, like uh that's like discrimination in a way that we make it a little bit closer to home. When have you been like the teacher? When did the teacher like you more than the other people? And then they treated you differently. And now, like, that's just, you don't want to be in that situation for any number of reasons. Like, especially if you just want to be fair and like just share and just like kind of be on the same level as everybody else. And then somebody elevates you. It is so uncomfortable to be elevated. You're like, I don't want this. Like, I understand that you're trying to be nice to me or whatever, but it's extremely uncomfortable and no one's happy right now. And so that's a poison of preference of liking. So we looked at the poison of preference of disliking. We put people in boxes that says you'll never change, which we know isn't true. Just because you hurt me yesterday doesn't mean you're going to hurt me today. So why would I treat you like you were the person you were yesterday, where I know for a fact that there's zero chance that you were the person that you were yesterday? Like your biology is different, your mind is different, like your cells are different. Your belly has different food in it today than yesterday, Like you're different. And then positive preference, we do all kinds of stuff that creates an unequal world that we don't actually want to be part of as the recipient or the giver of that preference. Oh, you know what? Here's another one. It's in the stories of ourself, even, where we have a preference of, I have a preference of when my body is fit, meaning like I'm strong, I'm healthy. And then what happens is because that attachment and that grasping onto that positive story about myself, that version of me, right? So I have a positive preference of that person. I like that person. And the person who isn't fit and isn't healthy, I don't like that person. And I treat those Bobs very differently. But both of them deserve the equal kind of love, the unconditional love. Because then when I lose my fitness, I like feel less worthy of loving myself because I'm grasping onto that identity of a fit person being the thing I like. So then when it's taken away from me, I don't like it. But what if I was unshakable? Okay. And then here's what's really interesting, and I'm gonna kind of skirt through this quickly, which is neutral. The majority of beings in our world we perceive neutrally, which actually is the hidden gold mine. So the obvious gold mine is the people who afflict us, people who we don't like. Obviously, that is an opportunity to just mine the gold of our own evolution. Like, you know, you're like, if you understood the nature of cause and effect, you would realize that the end of that is that you will have a very challenging time being bothered by people. So but you know that you're not totally enlightened. So you're like, I still got something to work through. And so when you find someone who bothers you, you're like, yes, yes, like, because if you want to find the way out, you need guideposts or else you have no idea where to go. And that's where people that you don't like, that's where it's really, really helpful when people bother you, is that you're like, oh, thank you so much. Now I know what to work on? So that's an obvious gold mine. But the hidden gold mine is the neutral people. It's the people that you don't even think about, that you walk by all day long. Neutral. There's no obvious impact on your happiness or unhappiness, right? It's the clerk at the grocery store. It's the person in the car next to you. It's the people who are reading the work that you're creating that you'll never know. It's like, how do you feel toward those people? Really interesting. So from a cause standpoint, when you want to see limitless love, like love which is existing before perception, right? So like a love which loves without an object needing to be there. One of the ways you do that is by developing this loving compassion, this loving kindness toward neutral people. Like you just walk down the street as a beacon of love, and everybody who, gets hit by your gaze just receives maybe even one iota of equanimous love. Like that's a cool way to be, guys. It's really fun to walk the cities that way, I promise. Okay, so red flags. How to identify conditional love. Because they are X, I will be Y. As soon as you tell that story to yourself, red flags should be just, alarm bells should be just going off. Oh, because they were kind to me, I'll be kind to them. Oh, because they're my family, I'll do blank. Oh, because they were a jerk yesterday, they deserve what they got. Right? Like as soon as you start to do this, you are in the realm of conditional love, which is inherently limited. So that's a good all week long meditation. Just try to like set the alarm bell instead of to be going off when it's carbon monoxide. It's a conditional love alarm. And it goes off when you say, because of X, I will Y, as far as how you treat somebody and the story that you're holding them to, even though they are a changing being. You're sticking them to a past. That's not fair. You don't want that for yourself. Don't do it to other people. I was a jerk last week. I don't want to be a jerk this week. Why would you do that to somebody else then? So our goal is to become blind like the sun. This is one of my favorite analogies ever. The great compassion of the Bodhisattva is like the sun. It shines on all beings impartially. It is moved, it is not moved by the appearance of purity or impurity, the appearance of like or dislike. When the sun wakes up in the morning, gets out of bed, brushes his teeth, and it's like, who should receive my light today? It's not like, let me look. And it's like, you know what? Earth is Earth is seeming kind of petty today. So I'm gonna be petty back. Earth isn't gonna get my sunshine today. But Mercury, oh, Mercury complimented me yesterday. More sun to Mercury. No. The sun is blind. So can we, in our preference, be blind? And our preference to be all beings. And I swear to God, when you can see your partner this way, it is extremely transformative. In relationships, it's so easy for me to think about how a relationship serves me, whereas the essence of a relationship is that which serves us. And it's so fun to say, what's important to you? And then to have that be as important to you as the things which are important to you. So can your goals be as important to me as my own goals? Can what is important to you be as important to me as what's important to me? And then let me work equally for the both of us. Really beautiful. Really beautiful. And my favorite way to teach this is with movies. Because, when I'm hanging out with my buddies, I'm watching kung fu movies or something like that were directed by Keanu Reeves, you know? And then whose dialogue is awful. That gentleman knows how to act, does not know how to write dialogue. And I love that. The most sparse. Like in like 5 minutes, Keanu will just be like, yeah. And that's the entire dialogue. And when your partner is somebody who does not care about action at all and lives for plot driving dialogue, and you say, hey, let's watch that movie directed by Keanu Reeves, and they go, oh God, no. Instead of going, no, come on, and then starting to get a little nasty, like, but I really want to watch it. You go, well, what do you want to watch? And then you freaking listen. And then you do it. And then guess what happens? Everyone's happy because you are what you really wanted to be, which wasn't a consumer of film. You wanted to be a lover of your partner or a friend of a friend. That's what you really want when you go to watch a movie with somebody. You don't want to watch a movie. You just want to have a good time. So have that be your priority. And we know that a good time is a time which is shared, right? Not a time which is bulldozed what I want over what you want. Oh wow, this is a lot of words. Oh yeah, this is a meditation. Phew, good. I was like, I'm supposed to be wrapping up right now. Um, 10 minutes. Okay, so we're not gonna do this meditation. Well, for those of you who meditate outside of class, I will just rip through this because it is a beautiful meditation and I do encourage you to do it. This is realizing the error of preference. This is how you do it. Think about someone you like. Why do you like them? How do we treat them differently because of our affection toward them? Is our treatment of them conditional? Ooh. Is their likability a permanent quality of theirs? Where does that come from? Then do that same thing for someone you don't like. Why do you not like them? How do we treat them differently because of your dislike? Is your treatment of them conditional? Is their unlikability a permanent quality of theirs? Where did that come from? Then, out of realizing all of what you'll come out of this with, you'll realize that these are not useful graspings. So, I choose not to grasp to a fixed identity. I choose to understand them as a changing thing. What changes these people then, if they're changing things, what drives that change is whether I give love unconditionally or not. And I choose to love unconditionally, to be blind like the sun. And then with neutral people, should I work hard for their happiness, or should I just pass by them like I would a random blade of grass? Okay? And what you're doing here is you're cultivating unconditional love. You're cultivating equanimity. All right? Which is worthwhile. When you're able to cut, how do I want to say this? Yeah. When you're able to destroy the manacles, the handcuffs of preference, you step into the freedom of equanimity. And your love becomes unshakable, which is such a beautiful way to be. It's so limitless. It's so powerful. It's amazing. And it's the best gift that you could actually give to somebody. So it's worth cultivating. And that's why it's the beginning of developing compassion, because that's how things actually should be, or ought to be, or that's how things actually are. Okay, and that's today's class. Let's do questions, comments, discussion. Tell me why I'm wrong. Tell me why that's stupid.
Just a comment. Um, Blind Like the Sun is a great album name.
Yeah. Nice. Oh man. You know, I want to write that now. Cause like it would be like because it's great to go through the three scopes I like, I don't like, and neutral. And so like the first would be there's like super heavy, like I don't like you, right? So you're like, "Bah, digga, digga, da, digga, 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 oh, get the fuck up, da, 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 da," you know? And then it'd be like, I like you, which would be like pretty, but actually it'd be like poison with makeup on, right? So like you'd feel
Mm,
that something ain't right, but like it
yes.
kind of sounds like it should be beautiful, but there's actually something hidden that's gnarly. It's like the poison that's inside of the dessert or the razor blade that's underneath honey.
Some
You know,
creepy
like, oh,
Discord every once in a while, just
every
to
once in a
throw
while,
it off.
right?
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. And then there'd be like that moment of like just like being obliterated by truth. I don't know what that sounds like, but it's a cool project. And then you come into the infinity of unconditional love, which is blind like the sun. And then that's the vast neutral, you know, where everybody gets to be touched by that light.
So this was a trick that there's an album by this band called Godspeed You Black Emperor. It's like a weird post-rock
Oh
band,
yeah.
and there's an album called F sharp A sharp Infinity, and they have my friend bought the vinyl of it, and we were listening to it one time, and it actually the record is modified so that it just skips back and keeps playing the same two drone notes over and over and over again. So when you press Blind Like the Sun on a vinyl, we'll have to we'll have to have it last forever. Like that.
Dude, I love that. Wow. So, where is this hard to apply in your life? Let's do a little bit of personal reflection. I'll help you, Josh.
Did you do it? I don't know
I
where my
asked,
is,
yeah,
so
I hear you.
um something. I have a friend that I've known since like high school, uh and he's like he's been like very susceptible to like a lot of propaganda and is now like super like interested in politics. And
Mm,
you know, I feel that a lot of his positions are very, like hurtful and damaging, etc. And so, but I've made it a point, kind of like this time around, to not ostracize and isolate this person, because I've seen how that's just driven him more into this sort of lane.
nice.
But it's been a huge struggle to like consistently engage with this person in a way where I don't let my like feelings and emotions like run the conversation or direct things. Um, so a lot of what you were saying is like stuff that I need to keep in the forefront of my mind if I'm going to be engaging with people that I feel like so strongly and so differently about important things on. So I'm hoping just to like you know keep this stuff rather fresh, and if I can do the meditations, I'm certain that will be very helpful.
Hmm,
Do engage because we also have a very, like locally we go to township meetings and stuff together, and we have common goals and things
mm,
there that we connect over. So trying to lean more into that instead of circular conversations that feel uh not they just don't feel positive. They feel like we both walk away with
mm.
less instead of more. um so yeah, I guess I'm hoping that this sort of these sort of concepts can help me like maintain a level head and continue you know engaging with this person in the correct path and direction for both of us. So,
That is a wonderful application. Yay. And I want to highlight the idea of doing the disciplining in meditation. What was I saying? I forget who I was saying this to the other day, but like, if the next time for you to practice this is when it occurs, probably won't go well. But if you do this meditation, 30 times once a day for a month, then when you go to see that person, it'll be the 31st time that you had a chance to apply it. And that's when we say the definition of meditation is habituation of the mind, that's exactly what we're meaning when we say that. That's that's the definition of meditation, familiarization of the mind. That's it. That's all it is. And so be intentional about it. So you go through an analysis. Is he this way from his own side? Right? So first you just be with him, right? Just be with him and just let love pour. And then you bring in your challenging stories and you say, you know, what's the truth of these stories? Where are they coming from? And then you reflect on your own life to be like, that's for sure an echo of me. I've totally been I've been that guy for sure. Maybe in a smaller way, I think. Uh, and then now I choose to be different. And so now you choose to be different, and then you practice and you say, how am I going to show up next time I'm with this person? And then what you'll see is something really interesting because this is what happens. And I swear to goodness, if you actually do this practice, as sure as the sun rises, this will occur. He may not change, but everything around you will start to change. It's really interesting. You'll start to see propaganda like lose steam, or you'll start to see the outlets of propaganda become bankrupt or, fail to lawsuit or something like that, or you'll see, or you will see him change. And this is probably the best thing, is that you won't feel afflicted by it. You won't be like "Arr," about it, which is actually like kind of an end goal.
I would say that that's been like becoming frustrated at all by him in our discussions is sort of like the main frustration. I'm so like upset with myself for letting this dig so deep, you know, like it
Mm,
feels like
totally.
it's the way it's like getting under my skin. It's like obvious. It's like I should not. There shouldn't be anything like this that gets to me on this level. And so I do think I need to do some meditation to figure out why am I feeling as strongly as I'm feeling about my interactions with this person. Uh,
Yeah.
because there's something there. It's not just him, and it's not just the things we're discussing. I feel like there's a little bit more complexity going on. um, so I will certainly take your advice, and I will certainly train so that you know when I'm having these interactions, they can be more fruitful and less you know damaging to my like throwing me off for the day or whatever, or like get me stuck in a loop thinking about something 100 times. um, yeah, because those are the things that make it so that I feel like I don't want to engage with this person anymore. I'm like, oh, well, I've my breakfast is, now I'm all like, I can't stop thinking about this thing, and my brain is stuck on coming up with logical arguments, and I'm like, there's a time and a place maybe, but I like that for it to be, uh, not spilling over into other things.
Hey Josh, if I could just chime in, and I totally hear you. I've been through a long journey with a lot of that too, and have some grace with yourself because a lot of those abstractions, especially the popular ones, are neurolinguistically engineered to make people do that. So it's like you're fighting against really high technology information to some extent when you're trying to, be balanced in unshakable rock in the face of it. So it literally is affecting your biology. So
Yeah,
yeah,
I, I appreciate that, and yeah,
good.
it's
Be
because of
gentle with
that.
yourself.
Yeah, I've tried to give myself boundaries and guidelines where I'm like, at a certain point, I need to step away from this because it is so effective at like getting me engaged, in these different ways. So I appreciate that. I will take that note of grace too.
Nice. Heinz, how you doing, bro?
Hey, hey. Well, I guess I have lots of realizations from starting from the meditation we had.
Mhm.
Um, I was thinking that I usually like leave jobs very soon. I don't have like this tolerance built in me yet. So the thing I got to do is to come from renunciation to acceptance, like
Mm,
to accept the circumstances and to build that strength and that equanimity. So and also to build an image, a more equanimous image about myself. So that I'm not feeling once like the greatest person in the earth, and like 1 month later like the messiest one.
mm.
So yeah, that's what are we working on.
Oh, well, thank you so much for sharing. We are up on time. I don't want to keep anybody longer, but I want to share one thing that I think would be applicable to both Josh and Heinz's sharing. It's a meditation of we can do this for other people, and we can do this for ourselves. And this is going to be the meditation we do next week, but it sounds really nice, and I'll do it like a short version of it, which is look at yourself with the eyes of an idealized version of your mother, right? So not everybody has a mom that they have like good relationships with or something like that, but like imagine like maybe one moment. I think you can do that when a mother, your mother, looked at you with pure love. Like maybe it was as soon as you were born, and the mother looks at the child and just imagine that one moment of pure gaze into your being. And then see the people that piss you off from the perspective of their idealized mother. Is that a wrong way to look at somebody? No, because it depends who's looking and when. You can't say that that's a wrong way to look at somebody just because you don't see them that way doesn't mean that they aren't seeable that way. So it's so easy to be stuck in our story of somebody that we forget that there's a lot of stories of somebody. And I do that a lot with American presidents, for example. Is that I get like real frustrated and then I start to get grumpy and then I start to not be who I want to be and then I start taking weird actions that aren't actually aligned with who I want to be in the world. And then I go, well, how did that person's mom look at them right after they were born? Was that a valid way to look at that person? And the answer is yes, it was a valid way to look at that person because that was the view of unconditional love theoretically. All right, we're working with an exercise here, which could be true, but I don't actually know. And so we do that with the person who's making us upset, and we just begin to familiarize our mind with that perspective because we get to choose. We actually get to choose how we see somebody. So what are you choosing? And then you can do that with yourself. Like, I am such a heavy critic of myself. And then I think about like what I would see if I was my mom or my dad looking at me when I was like a little tiny freaking baby. And they'd be like, "Dude, look at you. Come on, man. Like you walk now. Like that's amazing. Like you couldn't and now you can." And I'm like, "Oh my God," and so uh and then also like when I feel like I'm so great, they're just like, "Okay, like yeah, good job, but like you also shit your pants a lot." And so you're like, okay, okay, okay. So it's like in the gaze of unconditional love, it is an equalizing force. And so we can do that for others and we can do that for ourselves. To what Heinz is saying, to kind of make life more stable. It's like you don't have to stabilize by truncating, by cutting off and simplifying. You're actually stabilized by expanding. You stabilize by holding greater complexity in a container which can hold complexity, which is unconditional love. Conditional love is so unstable because it's built on weird complexity of like, well, if you do that, but not that on a Tuesday in the morning, I'll love you. And it's just like, oh, like but the human experience is so complex that the way to meet it should be something which has the capacity to hold infinite complexity, which is love before condition. Love before judgment, love before cognition, the love which just is love before there even needs to be an object of love. Like that is an infinite container to actually be with the world in a real way, including our own internal worlds, but also, external worlds. Cool. Well, thank you guys so much for coming to class today. I'm gonna wrap there. Becky, not to cut you off, but this is really, really great sharing. Hang out in the chat. Uh, I'm gonna post that album by Godspeed. I love that. I love that band, Paul. So now I'm gonna be fascinated with that. I didn't know that about them. That's great. And have a great time meditating. As always, all the recordings are on the platform. If you're not on the platform, get on the platform. If you like it, it's pay what you can. So $1 a month at least. I don't give a just let's be together. And then, all the recordings and all the slides are up there. And that's where I'm going to be posting all the meditations too in a way that's with my fancy pants podcaster Mike. All right, guys. Love you so much. Have a great week. See
See
you
you
soon.
all.
Peace.